Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Scott Sports 101. I'm Scott Trella. We're going to have an update on... We will not have a Browns update today, but we will... I have an update on Cavs and NBA news of the coronavirus, which was reported last night. And we're going to talk about all that and everything that involves that. But first, here is today's Scott Sports 101 trivia question. Which NFL player holds the record for playing the most games in NFL history, primarily on offense? I will have the answer later in the podcast. And as I said, the Cavs and NBA news I have right now, some updates on the coronavirus that's affecting the world of sports in general. The NBA has suspended its season until further notice after a Utah Jazz player named Rudy Gobert, as I mentioned last night, preliminary tested positive for coronavirus. The test result was reported shortly before tip-off between the Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder on Wednesday night. The affected player was not in the arena. The league says, according to reporters at the game, one of the Thunder trainers sprinted onto the floor to talk with the three officials. A bit later, both teams were escorted off the floor and into the locker room. The game originally announced a postponement was then canceled. The suspension of play will take place immediately following the conclusion of Wednesday night's schedule. The NBA, this NBA hiatus will determine next steps for moving forward. In regard to the coronavirus pandemic, the league wrote in a statement. While the league didn't reveal which Utah Jazz player had tested positive, multiple reports are indicating that it's Jazz center Rudy Gobert, as I just mentioned, who was listed as questionable with an illness going into the night. Jazz and Thunder players are currently quarantined at Chesapeake Energy Arena, according to ESPN. The Jazz were recently in Cleveland for a matchup against the Cavaliers on March 2nd. There is no official word on how long Gobert has been sick. One Cavs player reached via text by Cleveland.com on Wednesday night said he was hopeful and expecting to get tested for coronavirus at some point Thursday afternoon, especially given the recent close contact with Gobert. The Cavs flew home from Chicago following Thursday night's game. They were scheduled to practice at Cleveland Clinic Courts on Thursday afternoon before leaving for Charlotte, the next stop on a 6-game road trip. Another Utah Jazz player, but of course, all this season has been postponed, and the Cavs will not be playing that game. Now, as I said, another Utah Jazz player has reportedly tested positive for the coronavirus. ESPN reported Thursday morning that All-Star guard Devon Mitchell has tested positive, joining center Rudy Gobert. Gobert tested positive on Wednesday, prompting the NBA to suspend its season indefinitely. Jazz star Donovan Mitchell has tested positive for the coronavirus, league sources tell ESPN. Jazz players privately say that Rudy Gobert had been careless in the locker room, touching other players and their belongings. Now a Jazz teammate has tested positive. The Jazz were scheduled to play a road game against the Oklahoma City Thunder on Wednesday night, but the game was called off minutes before tip-off, soon after the NBA announced that the Jazz player, later reported to be Gobert, tested positive for COVID-19. Gobert was not in the arena, as I mentioned last night, in Oklahoma City prior to the game, and his test result, was reported shortly before the game was set to begin. The NBA said once the positive test was known, players were quarantined in both locker rooms to await medical testing. The Jazz said in a statement that the affected player tested negative for influenza, strep throat, and upper respiratory infection earlier Wednesday. However, he was given a precautionary test for COVID-19 and yielded a positive test. According to The Athletic, Mitchell was the only other member of the Jazz organization to test positive for the coronavirus. Out of 58 tests administered on Wednesday night, remaining tests came back negative. Now this is really affecting the world of sports. And turning over to the March Madness tournament news that I have, the NCAA announced Thursday that they have canceled the men's and women's basketball tournaments as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, just a day after the governing body indicated a plan for the NCAA tournament games to be played without fans in the arenas. Now, this also was of course meant that tonight's Big Ten tournament was canceled and the MAC tournament, and tonight's game between the Buckeyes and the Purdue Boilermakers was canceled as well. And players and coaches and fans are disappointed, but they understand why this has to be. This is just a precautionary, and they don't want anybody to be affected by anybody who has it. Now, this is really affecting the world of sports, and there are other sports that have been canceled, and it is really affecting it in a way that this really needs to be taken care of and really simmer down. And I will announce the other things that have been canceled or pushed back in just a moment. But right now, it is time to reveal the answer to today's Scott Sports 101 trivia question. Which NFL player holds the record for playing the most games in NFL history, primarily on offense? And if you said 49ers great Jerry Rice, you are correct. The immortal Jerry Rice, who played wide receiver, currently holds the record at 303 games, the most for a player who wasn't a kicker or a punter. I will have another trivia question on my next podcast, so stay tuned for that. Now, there's other sports that have been affected by this and been canceled. The MLS Soccer League has canceled their games for at least 30 days. They have postponed them due to this. The PGA Tour, the Players' Championship after the first round, and also the tournaments until the Masters have been postponed. And the men's and women's tennis games have been postponed. The tennis matches in Miami have been postponed for the women, and men's elsewhere have also been postponed. The NHL announced Thursday it is pausing the 2019-2020 season effective immediately. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman hopes games will resume as soon as it is appropriate and prudent. And this will be a pushback, and that means it's Stanley Cup playoffs and finals as well. But we'll get these games resumed. We'll see when. I'll let you know when. And Major League Baseball has canceled the remainder of spring training and is pushing back the start of the regular season at least 2 weeks. The regular season was originally scheduled to start on March 26th. Now, could this affect the Major League Baseball season? The Tribe was supposed to play the Detroit Tigers on the 26th, but now that's going to be pushed back as well. And I have to tell you, I really feel this is undoubtedly for the best, and I can wholeheartedly agree 100%. And hopefully this season will get underway a couple of weeks after the original, when it was originally supposed to start. The NFL draft is scheduled to take place in just 6 weeks from now on April 23rd through the 25th. Will it affect the draft? We will have to wait and see on that, if it will affect the draft indefinitely. But the coronavirus is really affecting the world of sports in a very big way, and it's really forcing sporting events to be canceled. And I just feel that this was the right choice to make and the right decision. And now for the NBA, could the season resume, and when will it resume, and will they have the playoffs in the NBA Finals? Now, it could be done as in August, the rest of the NBA season, the playoffs in the NBA Finals, and if that is, it could be the regular season would be set to begin 8 weeks from that. But I don't know if that's going to be. Well, hopefully it's to simmer down a lot sooner than that. But we will see what happens. And I will have updates on this coronavirus situation as developments become available. Well, that's just about going to wrap it up for this edition of Scott Sports 101. I'll be back this weekend, most likely on Sunday, with another podcast. But until then, always remember, be a team player each and every day, any way possible. So long, everybody. 3, 2, 1, I'm done.